Napoleon once asked, what is history but a fable agreed upon? It's a fantastic question, and honestly, it's the perfect place for us to start. Because we're about to dive into one of the most compelling, most mysterious fables in all of history, the story of the Knights Templar. So let's set the scene. Imagine it's dawn on Friday, October 13th, 1307. In a jaw-dropping, perfectly coordinated operation, the King of France's men smash their way into every Templar compound in the country. We're talking everyone, from the Grand Master in Paris all the way down to the newest recruit in the middle of nowhere. They're all arrested. An entire institution just gone, wiped out in a single morning. And that really is the million-dollar question, isn't it? How on earth did this happen? How would an order of celebrated warrior monks, these guys were the heroes of Christendom, the bankers to kings, how did they suddenly become the bad guys, hunted down as heretics by the very same people they used to serve?
To figure that out, we actually have to start at the end. Their brutal, shocking, and sudden end. The very day, by the way, that gave us the whole superstition about Friday the 13th being unlucky. Yeah, this is where it comes from. Now, you gotta look at the charges they came up with. They weren't accused of normal stuff, like theft or treason. No, these charges were designed for maximum shock and horror. Spitting on the cross, worshipping a mysterious severed head called Baphomet, blasphemy, obscene secret rituals. This wasn't just an attack on their power, it was an attack on their very souls. So, for any of this to make sense, we have to rewind. We have to understand who the Templars really were. And more importantly, how did they get so powerful that the only solution was to completely destroy them? And believe it or not, the whole thing started with just 9 guys. Seriously. Around the year 1119, a French knight named Hugh de Payens and 8 of his buddies got together with a pretty simple goal: protect Christian pilgrims on the super dangerous roads to Jerusalem. They were so poor at the beginning, they were literally called the Poor Knights of Christ. But their rise to power was just meteoric, absolutely insane. Within 10 years, they get the official stamp of approval from the church. Then, just 10 years after that, a papal bull basically makes them untouchable. They were now answerable only to the Pope. Not kings, not local bishops, nobody. They were essentially their own sovereign nation. But here's the real game changer. Their power wasn't just about swords. These guys were innovators. They basically invented international banking. A pilgrim could drop off gold in Paris, get a coded piece of paper, and then cash it in for the same amount in Jerusalem. It was genius, it was secure, and oh boy did it make them rich. Before you knew it, they were less like a monastic order and more like a medieval multinational corporation. They owned huge amounts of land all over Europe, ran businesses, and get this, they were the official bankers for the King of France himself. And right there, that's where the trouble starts. Their own success created a huge problem. They just got too rich, too powerful, and way too secretive. They weren't just part of the kingdom anymore. They were a state within a state. This slide just leaves it all out perfectly. Look at the contradiction. Their whole mission was to protect poor pilgrims, but the reality was they had unimaginable wealth. They all took personal vows of poverty, but as an organization, they had unchecked power. And they were supposed to be the public defenders of Christianity, but everything they did was shrouded in secrecy. And then, in 1291, the bottom falls out. The last Christian strongholds in the Holy Land are lost. This was a massive blow, because suddenly the Templars' entire reason for existing was gone. They were this huge standing army with no war to fight, but they still had all the money and all the power. People started looking at them and asking, what exactly are you guys for now? And that, right there, put a giant target on their backs. All that success bred a lot of jealousy, especially from one guy in particular, King Philip IV of France. See, Philip was constantly at war, which made him constantly broke. And guess who he was deeply in debt to? Yep, the Templars. He looked at their massive, tax-free fortune and didn't see a holy order. He saw a solution to all his money problems. So, Philip has his motive, and he unleashes this absolutely brutal 7-year-long campaign to not just take the Templars' money, but to erase them from existence. His plan was just chillingly methodical. Step 1, the dawn raids and seizure of all their stuff. Step 2, systematic, brutal torture to get confessions. Step 3, use those confessions extracted under torture to force the Pope's hand. And the final, most twisting part? If any knight was brave enough to later say, "Hey, I only confessed because you were torturing me," they were immediately declared a relapsed heretic and burned alive at the stake.
And it all comes to a head in 1314. The last Grand Master, Jacques de Molay, is about to be executed. And as the flames are rising around him, he reportedly shouts out that he and the Templars are innocent. And he summons both the Pope and the King to face God's judgment within a year. And this is where the story becomes legend, because Pope Clement died just 1 month later. And King Philip, he died in a hunting accident before the year was out. For people back then, it was proof. The curse was real. And that moment sealed the Templar myth for all time. Because here's the crazy part. Destroying the order wasn't the end of their story. Not even close. In fact, it was really just the beginning. Their sudden, violent end created this massive vacuum, and centuries of myths and legends have rushed in to fill it. I mean, you've got all these incredible stories. What happened to their massive treasure that was never ever found? Did their fleet escape the raids? Were they secretly guarding the Holy Grail? Did they just go underground, maybe influencing groups like the Freemasons? The myths are just as fascinating as their real history. And so, at the end of the day, it all boils down to this one question that people are still arguing about 700 years later. Were the Templars just pious martyrs who were framed by a greedy king? Or was there something to those accusations? Were they hiding some darker secret? Some truth that made them just too dangerous to be allowed to exist? Which brings us right back to where we started, doesn't it? Maybe the real, capital T, truth about the Knights Templar is just lost to time. Maybe their incredible story is simply one of history's greatest, most fascinating, and most enduring fables agreed upon.